or feature of ASL, grammatical structure, linguistic structure, is something that we call faceting. It's bundling components to make out the meaning, for emphasis, for specificity. In English, we use adjectives, right? In ASL, we use them as well. But we have to do something different when we go from ASL into spoken English. So here's an example in ASL, and think about how you would interpret it into spoken English, making it idiomatic, sounding natural in spoken English. Ready? Okay, give it to me in spoken English. Just the sunset. I used faceting around the sunset, didn't I?
Beautiful, it's bright, it's colorful.
Okay, but now don't get carried away with it, because
Yeah.
if you get carried away with it, then it doesn't transfer over to English.
Beautiful.
Great, right? So it was gorgeous. There was colors in the sky. It was orange and yellows, and they were streaming all over. And that's part of faceting in ASL, where there's all of this extra information that makes it visual. We don't make it visual into English, so we have to compress all of that visual stuff into clear, concise, but with the same point. A spectacular sunset, a beautiful sunset. My husband and I watched a gorgeous sunset. Then, in our minds as English speakers, you've all seen a gorgeous sunset before. You have all that information that comes to you. But we can't say, close your eyes. Close your eyes for a minute. You wouldn't say, oh, listen, class, last time my husband and I, we didn't know what to do. We were kind of bored. So we took her right out to the lake and sat down. We watched this gorgeous sunset where there were yellows and oranges. It kind of got hazy as the sun started dipping down below the trees until it finally disappeared. It was so romantic. You laugh.
I don't know.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
I just feel children. Maybe I just don't know. I don't know.
Maybe you do talk a lot.
Yeah, I've seen the sunset before.
Right. Like, it's too much. We don't talk about things like that in English. Again, if it's an intimate conversation between you and your friend, I may give you all of those details about what I saw. But idiomatically in English, we leave all of that visual stuff implied and say spectacular, beautiful, gorgeous. We don't give you and describe all of that visual stuff. It's not part of the language. But in English, I said, yesterday my husband and I decided to go car shopping. He's having a midlife crisis and just bought a cherry red Porsche. Now you're interpreting into ASL. How would you interpret it? In your mind, when I say cherry red Porsche, what are you? That's how you would expand into ASL, to add all of those adjectives to describe visually this sports car. 2 seats, a back seat, whatever.
So if you were talking about this beautiful sunset, I mean, just that, you know, my husband and I, we went on this walk and we saw the most gorgeous sunset. How would you interpret that?
That's what beautiful means visually. So I have to add and bundle all that part. Am I being exact specific? It was yellows and orange, it wasn't pink. It's colorful, it was, you've seen one before, blah, blah, blah. That's visual. Remember, the clients are visual, so that's the difference between the two languages. Expand, compress, expand, compress. Does that make sense? James?
When you're doing faceting, doesn't that just make your lifetime even longer?
Yeah, sure. You need more time to fasten information if you're working into ASL.
And then you catch up by impression or whatever.
You catch up by compression.
This might be a naive question, but how do you know when this means one thing and when it means something else?
What else do you think this means?
Well, I thought it meant
Romantic, intimate, it means
that's
that's
not
it.
physical intimacy, but
Oh.
can it not mean that?
No, it can't. Yeah.
So how do you?
No, this is physical intimacy.
Okay.
Again, because we say physical intimacy in English. We say intimate, and that automatically to us means physical. It means close, it means, I guess you can get intimate with your words, but that's what it brings up for us. If we're going to talk about physical intimacy in ASL, this does not mean physical intimacy, because this is too abstract. ASL is not abstract, this is romantic, lovey-lovey each other. If I'm gonna talk about foreplay, I'm gonna talk about foreplay and physical intimacy, and I'm gonna sign that directly. Otherwise, we have to transfer the meaning. See the difference? Hey, David, any questions? So we got that component too. So later on, when you pick up your pen, you're listening to a spoken English text, and I want you to incorporate contrasting when you can. I want you to incorporate faceting, thinking about the visual nature of your consumers. The third linguistic feature of ASL that we have to do something different with as interpreters is reiteration. Again, in ASL, everything is clear, concise, explained to the nth degree, so there's no misunderstandings. So a lot is reiterated or repeated. There's a lot of repetition in ASL. For example, this sentence. Right? So if you were to literally interpret that, it would sound like this. I want to tell you a funny story. Funny. I want to tell you a funny story. It's funny. Does that sound ridiculous? It sounds ridiculous, but you see the signs produced, and as new interpreters, you want to make sure that you are not missing anything, and you're going to voice every single sign that you see. And then you start listening back to yourself, and you're like, wow, that doesn't really sound very natural, because you haven't made the transition between the two sentences. So you see, I want to tell you a funny story, funny, you have to compress it to, I want to tell you a funny story. I'm going to tell you a hysterical story. We have to inflect one word, add an adjective to make it sound natural in English. But we can't just literally transfer over what we saw. Make sense? Okay. We don't do a lot of this in spoken English. We say what we mean, we say it in a clear, concise sentence, and we leave it there. We do lots of emphasis through inflection, but not repetition of lexical items. Next week, I'm going to give you a difficult test. It's really tough.
I got scared for a second.
Well, I mean, there's no reason to repeat that. If I say, next week, I'm going to give you a difficult test. You've got it, because I inflected it, and I'm not going to repeat it with another visual sign. And yes, some of you might say, but there's inflection in ASL. Yes, there's inflection in ASL. This is just another way to show inflection or emphasis. Amy Jo.
In your experience with working with young students in elementary school settings, do teachers use reiteration? Really?
Deaf ed teachers or hearing teachers who teach deaf kids, they have in regular conversation, we don't often do that, in English. And remember too, when I'm saying not often, I'm never saying never, it doesn't ever happen, I'm not saying all or always. There's always gonna be variations to that. You're gonna see things used when it probably shouldn't be used or vice versa. So be flexible, these are just generalizations. The next feature is utilizing 3D space. So we know that space is hugely important in ASL because it is a visual language. You all are really comfortable right now with characterization and role shifting, with setting things up here and here to use compare and contrast, but there's all of this other space that we have, and we're going to talk about it later, next week, I think, when we talk about spatial mapping, that we need to start using. The reason why it's so easy to watch a deaf storyteller is because they're so clear, because they're using a space. They're not just standing right here and throwing all of their sentences right here, and then where we can understand them. So, we need to use that 3D space to make sure that our messages are visual. We're not going to get it always in English, because English is not a visual language. Things like role shifting or creating characters, you know. I was coming to work this morning and I saw a man and a woman having a heated argument on the street. You hear that in English, you're interpreting it to ASL, you make a man and a woman. You just do some general whatever. We use that space because that's how we have to change the language to make sure that it's understood. Good? Directional verbs. I guess right there, just look at it. Directional verbs is another one. All right, so here's an example of using space in ASL. Tell me how you might interpret it and compress it into spoken English. How would you voice that into spoken English? What? What do you mean that would stop? That would? Yes. That's not how you would voice it into spoken English. Yes. Choice. Option. Choice. One choice. Come on, Amy Jo.
I think I missed a little bit at the beginning though.
Whatever.
It was like, next week my family and I were going on one vacation. We tried to find the best flight. We looked and looked and looked and found one option. It wasn't the greatest. A lot of layovers to get to.
Perfect. So what did she compress? All of the visual, spatial stuff, right? So close your eyes and listen to my interpretation. Next week, my family and I are taking a vacation to California. We could not find a direct flight. So we got tickets that are going to take us from Chicago west across Missouri to St. Louis. We have a 2-hour layover in St. Louis. We have to sit and do nothing. Then hop on another plane to head further west. But we're not going all the way to the west coast. We have to stop in Las Vegas. See what I'm saying already?
Yeah.
So I'm explaining to you all of the visual spatial information that makes no sense in spoken English, right? In spoken English, you're going to give me the point. We have layovers, it's going to take a long time, eventually we'll arrive in California. That's how we say that kind of stuff in English to each other. In ASL, let me show you, let me tell you,